What is the difference between racing during the track season and racing during the cross-country season? This is a really big question and there's many critical differences. So in this video, I plan to answer that exact question with the help of my roommate. So let's roll the intro so we can jump right into this. For starters, there are a lot of critical differences between racing on the track and racing on a cross-country course. When you're racing on a track, there's a consistent distance. It's always going to be a 400-meter loop or a 200 or a 300-meter loop, depending on if you're racing indoors. And then the surface is going to be consistent. It's always that rubbery surface that you can rely on. So you really don't have to worry about much other than just racing and staying in the race. As compared to cross-country, where there are so many variables. There's wind, there's rain, there's mud, there's grass, there's asphalt, there's gravel. It all really depends on what the course is holding, but it can be very variable, and so obviously that really mixes up the race. And every time you race during cross country, it's going to be an entirely different race, so it's hard to rely on time and it's much easier to rely on place and racing competitively as compared to the track, where times are very consistent and you can really compare races time versus time. And so that's something very important to note, and just some obvious distinctions I had to get out of the way. But before we get into the video where I kind of really break this down and how to race each and approach them mindset based, I want to address a common misconception, because there is a huge misconception about running track and being a track athlete versus a cross-country athlete. And so let's break that down really quickly. Okay, so the common misconception is that you're either a track runner or that you're a cross-country runner. And I actually used to believe this and think that I was a cross-country runner, because whenever it became track season, I would run a notch below where I did in the cross-country season. So I just thought that, heck, I'm not that good at track. I'm just gonna train through it so I can get back to cross-country. And this wasn't the best mindset. But my senior year of high school track, I ended up making a switch in my mind and thinking about it differently. I ended up having some of the best races of my entire life and having huge PRs, and it was all just a mindset change. So let me introduce my roommate and then we can jump right into this. Okay, so this is my roommate Alex, and he is an incredible track runner. Track is his favorite season, and then cross country is my favorite season. So we've come up with 5 questions that will be able to tell the differences between track and cross country and how you can approach them in your races and how you can run at your best in these 2 seasons. So we're gonna go into the other room and kind of break down the differences. But before that, I want Alex to introduce himself, because, you know, gotta get to know him.
Hey everyone, my name is Alex Lukili. I'm a freshman at William & Mary and Zach's roommate. I mainly specialize in the 1600 and the 800. Coming into college, I ran 155 and 422. And this past weekend, I just ran 419 in the 1600.
Which is pretty crazy, because his 422 was on an outdoor track, and then his 419 was on an indoor track, which is much harder to run really fast on. But he's been improving, and like, he upped his mileage a ton coming into college, so it's been like a huge adjustment period, but he's been killing it. But now it's time to head into the other room, so let's answer some questions. Okay, so now that we are in the studio, also known as our second room, it is time to go through a couple questions that we have developed to help, break down the differences between track and cross country from a track runner, from a cross country runner perspective. So we're gonna each be answering from our respective position and opinion and favorite. And obviously we are both track and cross country runners, but track is Alex's favorite and cross country is my favorite. So Alex is gonna run down the 5 questions we have developed.
Alright, so the first question, how do you tactically race cross-country versus track? The next question, how do you train for your respective season? What is the value of training in your non-primary season? What is the best way to approach mentally your non-primary season? And then what is the difference in atmosphere of the races for cross-country versus track?
Okay, so let's run it down from the first question. How do you tactically race your season? So Alex can start off with track.
Yeah, so with track, every little moment of your race matters. So specifically for the 800, you really can only afford to make one mistake. So you really just have to get out really hard, just make sure that you're in a really good position to start the race. And so Of course, it always comes down to who has the most left in the tank at the end of the race, but if you set yourself up to be in the position to have that final kick, then you're always going to be better off.
Yeah, so track is just highly tactical. A lot of the moves are very calculated and everything is kind of thought out, but it's just really tactical as compared to cross country, where you're usually on a course where, you know, it can really be super variable. There are hills where some people are weaker at hills and some people are stronger at hills. And so it kind of depends on what type of runner you are and how you approach it. But most people just go out in a pace range that's comfortable for them, but at one pace for a PR. And you kind of just try and hang on for as long as you can until you finally approach the final kick, where then you really race for it. And so it just consists of a lot of small moves along the way and just a lot of strength throughout the entire race. But moving on to our second question, how do you train for the season? And so we'll start off with track again.
Right, so training for track, you know, it's completely different from cross country, because let's say you're training for the 800, you have to do a lot of speed work because, like I said earlier, the 800 is essentially just a longer sprint. So you have to do a lot of anaerobic work. You also have to do some aerobic work just so you have that endurance to finish. The biggest difference between track and cross country is that you need to have that sharpness, that speed if you want to be successful.
Yeah, and as compared to cross country, where a lot of the times you're training is very aerobic, you're doing a lot of repeats that are not really touching that anaerobic system as much as you would during the track season. So a lot of times you'll be doing 1,000 repeats, mile repeats, and things along those lines that are more aerobic. And when you're running 1,000 at about 5K to 10K pace, it's not going to be too strenuous, but the volume is what matters in that case. And obviously you will do some work that is anaerobic, some faster stuff, but most of it consists of bulk volume. And that's kind of what defines our training as compared to track training. But Alex can read off the next question.
Yeah, so what is the value of racing your non-primary season? For me, being a track runner, running cross country is extremely valuable because it really just teaches me that mental toughness of just locking in for that longer race. Running cross country is great because it gives me that endurance and it gives me that base to just have success, to feel better towards the end of track races.
Yeah, and so there's definitely a lot of value to crossing over between cross and track. And for a cross runner going to track, it's really big for just honing in that aerobic system. Even if you are working to a 5K or 3,200, you're still gonna need a good amount of speed. And so it's really good for mixing up your training and just mixing up what you're doing day to day. The next question is, what is the best way to approach your weaker season? And so Alex will start us off again.
Yeah, so the best way to approach your weaker season is have that mentality. I'm gonna do what I can in this season to make myself better in my main season. And having that mental fortitude that you get from cross country, my off season, really just pulls me through mentally during track.
I usually approach the track season in a very open way because, as I said earlier, I used to not be that good at it, but now I am definitely a lot better at track than I was. And so like a lot of it was just approaching it with the idea that I can be good at this, and knowing that I can do this. If I can run well in cross country, there's nothing that says you can't also run well in the track. So a lot of it was just adapting my mindset to going faster and really learning how to race competitively. Kind of just thinking about racing differently was a big thing to adapting to running track as compared to cross country. Our last question is, what are the differences in the atmospheres of the races? And so Alex will answer first.
Yeah, so I really just love the atmosphere of track because, you know, you're running around a circle that has bleachers surrounding it. There's a ton of fans to cheer you on. You know, your teammates are there, your parents are there, and I really just love that energy that carries over to the track from everybody cheering for you, and it really motivates me to succeed for them.
Yeah, definitely. And during cross country, it's a little bit different. I'd say it's more of a festival before. There's just like a lot of people and tents and stuff going on. But then when the race starts, you know, it's pretty isolated. A lot of times you'll be running back in the woods where not many people will be, or even nobody will be. There's obviously concentrated sections of cheering, but a lot of the race is just on your own. And so I feel like a lot of the racing and the environment is just racing for yourself and being out there on your own and really just enjoying the sport for what it is. But yeah, that kind of concludes our questions and breaking it down. Thank you, Alex, for helping me answer this.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's really great to be here.
I hope you guys enjoyed, and now I will wrap up the video and kind of tell you like how I made the switch from, you know, having just the cross country mindset to then making the track mindset happen also. I'll see you soon.
All right, see ya. I'm gonna do some homework.
Oh yeah. Okay, so now that we've gotten all the differences out of the way, it's time for me to tell you how you can get from racing really well in cross country to then racing really well in track, or vice versa. And so for me, being a cross country lover and then switching over to track, as I said earlier, I wasn't too successful in track for the longest time, but my senior year of high school, I made a couple of changes that were very important and that really changed the game for me. And the first of those was taking what I loved about cross country and then applying that to track. And so I obviously tried to race a lot of 1600s, 800s, and 3200s in high school, but I really tried to focus on the 3200 my senior year because that was really a race where I could take what I loved, which was going slower and being a little bit more aerobic at the start of the race in cross country, and then applying that to track. So in the 3200, I can run a little bit more aerobically and just stay in the race to some degree at the start. And so that was really something I liked, where I can just really get into the race and, you know, get moving before I really have to move. And then at the end of the race, we would go really fast and kick and do more tactical racing, where I wasn't as strong. And so my senior year, I tried to strengthen those weaknesses and work on kicking and being able to go fast at the end of a race. And so I did that in my training. Whenever I was tired at the end of a workout, I would try to do a little bit more speed work to hone in on that weakness of mine, and then I would apply that in races. And so I would see the results, I would see the change happen. And so I had what I loved at the start of the race, and at the end of the race, I had what I worked on. And so it turned out that the race ended up really well, and it helped seal the deal on track racing for me and really bring down my PRs. So for any of you guys that are struggling, I'd recommend take what you love from one sport, apply it to the other, and then strengthen your weaknesses. So if you're coming from track, going to cross country, a lot of weaknesses you could have is just with the distance and being able to stay aerobic for a lot of the race. And so a lot of that just comes with base training. But that is all for this video. I hope that the knowledge and information in this video really helps you have some big PRs in the coming weeks and months. So good luck in your races. And if you notice, I am not usually on this channel. I have one other video on the channel about high school running and what I learned, but I have a channel of my own where I post running content and videos about running and my experience in college, so definitely check it out. The link will be in the description down below. But that is all for this week, so live happy, be healthy. I'll see you soon.